your ears. Let's test it.
Is to be able to take back our power and take back, as in the last hour we said, we need to reclaim our natural rights as human beings. That is what this program is really about. That is what Freedom Train International is really about. And it has been an extremely important program so far today, talking about, in that first hour, they are building the beast system, the great deceiver, and they're doing it for vanity. I thought that was very important what Matt said there. Artificial intelligence is what it is. It's artificial. It has no emotion. And he talked in the first hour, it's like psychopaths. Why are we putting this sort of psychopathic ability in the hands of potentially the psychopaths, the worst psychopaths in DARPA, in the Department of Defense, who have shown already a willingness to go to continual war to destroy humanity. But this is a very covert war. It's a very quiet underground war. And the war has been introduced through, for example, the horrors of CBDCs. And we can see that in China. If you look at any footage in China, you will see now there are many Chinese who have been basically excluded from society. They have been, they've had their bank accounts shut. They are therefore not able to pay for any food or rent. They are often not able to get on trains because they may have spoken out against the regime in China. They can't get around. They don't have access to cars. They can't get work because their digital ID shows that they are not acceptable people for speaking out in the Chinese society as it is. And you can see footage online of many of them simply sleeping on the streets. They just look like broken human beings. And it was so important when Aaron said in the last hour with Peter, we already have a version of CBDC here in the West. And that is because all of our banking is now tracked and traced. It will be very easy for them to put in a control mechanism using our spending patterns to say such things as, you have exceeded the amount of meat you are allowed to eat in a month. And that breaks our rules for, let's say they declare an emergency, which is a potential under the pandemic treaty that they want to push through from the UN, and with the imprimatur, with the full approval of the WHO, they can declare an emergency not just for health, but for health of the planet, not just for health of humans, but this is a climate emergency. And so under that emergency, they can say, because it's so important that we do something to stop climate change, which many of us now know from our research is a completely fabricated concept, just as the pandemic was. But they could potentially say, you're only allowed to eat meat once a month. And we can watch your spending patterns through tracking and tracing you through the CBDC structure that is really already woven in. And it's already woven in through banking. I know it personally. When I stood against this government in the last election, hi, Peter. When I stood against this government in the last election, I was shut down within 3 months from my banking. And I knew that it was a punishment for putting out the Barry Young data and for standing against them. Welcome to you all. We had a little bit of a glitch there at the beginning, but those things happen in live programs. Peter, I really enjoyed that last hour. And Matt, extraordinary to listen to you and your body of work that you're putting out. Let's begin with Peter Wilson. I would love to welcome you here. You've been highly recommended by Victoria. And could you do a little recce, a little overview of what really your involvement in AI, CBDC, the Agenda 2030 program, in pushing back on that has been.
Okay, yeah, great. And thank you very much for having me on. It's a great pleasure to be here. As it says there, I'm founder of a group called Checkmate the Matrix. And we are looking at ways of how to actually, rather than fight it head on and smash ourselves up against that Roman shield wall, as we've been doing sort of like in Britain since, like, you know, the Caesar times, was to actually do it more intelligently and look at better ways of actually accomplishing our goals and being able to sort of like outflank the Roman shield wall and get in behind them and actually start doing work behind the shield wall or attacking from behind, or as in the name says, checkmate, playing a better game of chess in this actual game that we see ourselves involved in. Now, where it comes down to CBDCs or AI and everything that's connected to that, like facial recognition and the digital ID, which all tied in, you know, we have ways that you can literally be challenging everything to do with that now through the actual systems that are already in place. And,
wow.
Very powerful is GDPR and DPA 2018. And if you tie that into...
We'll take those names. Just say that again, because many people will never have heard of this. I love in your introduction, you say privacy is paramount in today's spied on existence. That's for your site, which is Checkmate the Matrix. I love that, Peter. Cool. So what was that? JPTR? Was that what it was?
The General Data Protection Regulations.
Yes.
And DPA, the Data Protection Act 2018.
Right. Okay. So you get behind the lines of that sort of warfare. What are you doing with that?
Yeah, well, the thing is that a lot of people don't, I mean, you were saying that most of them probably not even heard of that, but even the ones that have heard of it do not get to grips with the power that it has. And the more that we actually look at it and research it and delve into it and use it against the system, which we do, you know, every single day in our group, we see that the power of it was probably because it was probably designed by them to protect them from us, protect their privacy. That's what they were probably looking at. How do we actually keep, you know, the unclean at bay and keep our privacy while we actually try and steal all of theirs? That's the way we actually can see it. So they probably forgot we could, or at least some of us can read. Then we can research and study and then find out, oh, wow, do you know what? This is actually some powerful stuff that you've got tied in with these regulations that can stop them straight away and what they're actually trying to do. And we actually have case law as well that proves that it is powerful and can be used even against the police when you're looking at facial recognition software, where the way that they actually use it and try to introduce it into communities. So, you know, it works very, very well.
Oh, Peter, I want to dive more deeply into this. And that sounds really like something that could arm mums and dads at home who are listening to all of this very high level discussion and thinking it's too much, it's too big. I mean, in the last 2 hours, we've heard really get on your knees and ask Christ for help. And Matt, I know that you've talked about that in the last 2 hours, and I believe that absolutely is one way, probably, well, without doubt, the most powerful way. But the arming of our families with knowledge and information to be able to push back is crucial, Matt, isn't it? Could you just tell Peter your background briefly so he's up to speed with what you've been doing?
Yes. Well, first, I didn't know I was going to speak with you today, and I'm so excited because I was trying to reach out to you to get to be in my new film. I love what you've been doing. You are pioneering at this, being a vocal person against the devilish technocracy that we are seeing us being, being forced to live under. This is actually a plan of captivity. They want to control the whole species of humanity and actually change us, as per Yuval Harari says. To tell Peter who I am, I'm a documentary filmmaker. Died Suddenly was a huge global success. Over 100 million people saw that, and it was crucial to make that movie because of what embalmers were seeing with the newly vaccinated bodies that they were embalming. And look, I'm not one. This is the one I set out to be. I've always made films, but I didn't think I was going into this genre of filmmaking. But the Lord puts us in positions of things that He's going to say, "Are you going to be brave enough to do this? This is where humanity's going, and I need you to do this right now because so many people are not awake to what the world we live under is." And He put me in positions to see firsthand. I was there for Yuval Harari's speech in Davos. I saw Christine Lagarde and Angela Merkel stand up and give him a standing ovation. And his thesis was, we are going to be a new species. And I say no to that. And it's nothing new under the sun. This is what the devil's been trying to do since Seed Wars, to take out Christ and his lineage. So, yeah, I'm excited that I'm talking to you right now. And hopefully we can talk afterwards, because what you're saying and what we're talking about, nanotechnology, Bluetooth, finding these things in graveyards, MAC addresses, people think you're crazy. But how crazy would we have seen if we were living under this, what we're living under right now, 20, 30 years ago? I'm sorry, they just they are ahead of the game with their technology, with their game plan. They talk about Agenda 2030 back in Agenda 21, Agenda 2045, where they want to Ray Kurzweil live in immortality through nanotechnology into the cloud. This is where they want to go. And as a free sovereign man who is an image bearer of God, I must warn the flock and build the ark. And the ark is already built through Christ. But when people saw that Noah was building something and there was no rain, that first raindrop that hit their head, they regretted not believing what he was saying. So we're in the same paradigm right now.
Oh, Matt, it's a real honor to speak to you, and I would love to do a deeper dive, one-on-one conversation with you, and also with you, Peter, about what you're doing. Matt, I think it was so important in that first hour when you talked about Harari and how soulless, how empty he is, what a psychopath he is. He has no emotion. And he represents that whole body of AI, this artificiality of AI. I see also that they are talking about rewriting the whole Bible through AI. That will be the Bible without any touch of godliness in it. We know that. So, Peter, talking at this level of really a demonic force potentially being unleashed, we heard Aaron in the last hour saying also that it can be used for good, but at the moment it seems to be veering off course and being used for very evil control means. I love, Peter Wilson, that you are offering mums and dads ways to learn, to self-educate, and take back their power. So tell us more about what you do, how you help people.
Yeah, well, I mean, we do have that group, Checkmate the Matrix. So obviously in there we have, it's broken off into different sections that we call classrooms, that they can literally go in to a classroom and educate themselves and the children. And we've actually even got in there children's book section where they can go and learn about like private trusts, but in a child's book, so they can read it. And it's all done literally with a cartoon style, like children's book. So they're reading it on their level, and all the adults think it's great because they actually getting to understand it way more than what they did on the adult version of the information. So but it's all about education, and it's all about how to protect your privacy through these actual means that have been created. And as I say, like the more you research it, to me, it's like, well, they want us to, they want to put us, into this corral, right? If you want to call it that. And they want the lower beings to be a different species and to actually be there and be obedient and do what you're told. But they don't want to be part of that. They want to be literally separate. So the way I see it is that they've created a set of rules and regulations that protect all the privacy. But you have to know what to say, what to do, and how to use it to actually gain this privacy. So if you don't know your rights, then you have none. So
you mean within even the darkest material that they're writing, there are ways, there are avenues that can protect our own privacy. They just don't advertise them. Is that what you're saying?
100%. They're hidden in plain sight, if you like. I mean, they're all public acts. They're all public regulations, but they don't go and plaster them on billboards or on bus stop windows and say, this is what you need to know. This is what you need to do. And when you actually start quoting some of the regulations, laws, we'll call them, because that's what they call them, a lot of them do not know how to respond because they're a loss, because they didn't realize, and I don't mean it flippantly, that we could read and we could actually research and start, hey, do you know what? We can use this, not just you.
So Peter, the first question for this discussion, we've got somebody here from Canada, my dear friend Peter McIsaac, I'm going to bring in a moment. And then we've got Matt from across the ditch as well in America. We've got people from all around the world. You're talking about UK specific regulations and rules. Is there a universality to this way out of the oppressive system? Do you know if it applies in other countries, what you've researched?
There is a lot of similarities, and every country has its own data protection in one way or another. It may well be more, because we have two sets of laws that govern. One of them is the European side, which is a strange thing, but it actually does help, for once, which is the GDPR, which came in from the EU. The General Data Protection Regulations, that came from the EU, but it still covers the whole of the UK. And we also have the DPA, which is the Data Protection Act. But I do know that a lot of different countries, that Canada, I've spoken with a lot of people in Canada that are in our group. We have people from literally Canada, United States, South Africa, Australia, all over Europe, Thailand, everywhere, right across the world. And they are similar. They might not say GDPR Article 15, right, on their section. But what we do is, when somebody comes with a specific problem and says ABC has happened, but I'm living in Canada, then what we'll do is we'll actually do an analysis and find out under their actual regulations and their laws, we'll call them laws, how it matches up to GDPR or the DPA in the UK. And then we can find their path as well. It's very, very similar. So it's universal in a fashion. Let's just say that GDPR is very specific to Europe, but the wording, if you can find it and go and analyze it, you'll find it in other countries' protections, privacy protections, data protections, whatever you want to call it.
Peter McIsaac, what's your reaction as you hear this after that fine last hour? But we did hear a lot of the negative that's going on, a lot of the rolling out of tyranny if they could have their way. And here's somebody saying, we can duck and dive and use their rules in a way that is very useful for the people. Peter McIsaac.
So thanks, Liz. One of the biggest issues, one of the greatest tools that we've taken advantage of in our fight against corruption here in Canada is actually Grok. One of their key tools. We've been able to do things with Grok. If you've got an X account and you've got a blue check mark, you can use the updated Grok version unlimited. And the key to using some of these search engines and AI is you have to learn how to be very specific in your data requests. And what'll happen, it's like Richard's just coming on now, but I think I heard him mention it earlier, that what happens, or it might have been Matt that said it, is that you can use these tools to your own advantage, but after a while, I can look at stuff now. I've been using it enough that I can tell, as much like the boys were saying, that it's you can tell when it's AI generated. And the only thing that you have to be aware of, Liz, is that even when you do deep research, it tends to lean a little to the left, and it tends to lie a fair bit. And a lot of things that they say, like Mark Twain used to say, just ain't so. So you have you have to actually look at everything. You still have to think. It's not, even though technically it could pass, I think I read something here 2 weeks ago, it passed the 155 IQ point. It can virtually pass any test, human test that's given to it. But the issue is it's still making mistakes, Liz. But that's a key tool that anybody has access to. I don't care. I mean, if you can push a few numbers, and matter of fact, you don't even have to be able to type, for example. You can just ask Grok a question. There's a picture of a mic, you tap it, you talk to it, and it'll give you answers, but you just have to be specific.
Well, Richard, welcome in. We have Peter Wilson here from the UK, and you know our other two guests. It's lovely to be able to talk to you, and I've really enjoyed listening to you in the previous 2 hours. But Richard, in that first hour, you warned us that not only are AIs like Grok and ChatGPT, they can be very inaccurate. But I think there was a warning in the last 2 hours that they can also be compiling profiles on us. They can, anything that is offered for free to me now, especially if it's offered under government approval, I'm very wary of, because I think there will be a bigger picture. They're collecting data on us. What's your reply to what Peter just said there? Well, going to those sort of grok for questions. Aren't they just farming us for information and how we think?
Yes, they're also shaping the way we think, the way we speak. They are. I mean, we have to ask ourselves. It's not just. I mean, any Google search, incidentally, is a form of. It will your everything about your very searches will be stored somewhere. That's the way you have to look at it, not just necessarily Google. I'm not actually identifying Google as doing this. Of course not. I'd never do that. Not in a million years. No. However, what you will find, though, it's like your Amazon Alexa, for instance. If you've got one of those, if you leave it on, you know that's always listening. Your phone, it's always listening. Data's been collected continuously around us all the time. We have to be aware that if you have a mobile phone, everything you have ever said has gone somewhere. We don't know where exactly. What third parties would have listened to this, but if you have a mobile phone, somebody somewhere has the information on this, and even when it's switched off. So, yeah,
it is. It's tricky. And Peter Wilson from the UK is here to give us all ways in which, from his research, we can push back and really maintain our privacy. So, Peter, just take that problem. Everything's listening to us now. Anything we put into our computers is somehow being logged on us and a profile on us being built. What are ways in the UK that you protect your own profile, your privacy?
Well, a lot of different things that I would tell everybody to do. But first of all, I would definitely say do not have anything like an Alexa anywhere near your house. Why anyone has to have one is beyond me. You know, I mean, I'm not being funny, but like, you know, I can't understand how people press a button on a dishwasher when you can just run it under the sink. It's just like, hang on, right? Really? You just can't go and wash your own dishes? But this is the way that people are being programmed now. You know, it's like if you can press a button to do it, then do it. But look at everything like that. Definitely, I wouldn't have an Alexa. We don't watch television, so we're not going to worry about a smart TV. Now, I would never wear any watch anyway, but definitely not a smart watch. All of these contraptions that people now, it is what they're getting control with. Was because, do you know what? Wouldn't life be easier if you just did this? And people buy it. You know, get in, I can have that smartwatch. Oh, get in, I can have that smart meter. I've actually just went and turned a UK energy company completely down, shut them down completely there when they were saying, well, you have to go and get a smart meter in your property. And I was like, no, I don't. You know, and they're like, you know, well, it's the only ones we have. So you need a new meter, which I do. Right, because I think they've switched it off, right? So, you know, and because it's went off mysteriously, I now need a new meter. However, they said, well, yeah, you can have it, not a problem. We'll send someone out and this is what you're getting. And I was like, well, we're not having one. We've got medical issues inside the home. We can't have that type of frequencies in the home. And they were, well, that's all we have. And then obviously what I did, I used the GDPR, like I was actually talking about, put it to them, and immediately they changed their mind. Oh, well, sorry about that. It's not a problem. What we'll do is we'll make an appointment. We'll come out. We've got the correct meter. Just explain what meter you want exactly, and we'll bring it to you straight away. Now, because
so Peter, that's something that affects so many people. You used a piece of legislation in the UK to insist that you should not be forced to have these ghastly smart meters. What was the clause in the legislation that gave you that right? That gave you that power?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it comes under GDPR Article 6, which is the consent and the legitimate interest side. What that means is if someone's going to take your data, why are they taking it? is there a legitimate interest or legal, right? Is it legal for you to have it? Why would you want to have it? Now, these smart meters still take your data. Now, right, okay, they're not going to measure your inside leg measurement or, find out anything like that, but they are taking a lot of data out of your actual home. So did you give permission for that? Did you consent to that? What is the legitimate interest for that? And when you actually put it to them and using the correct terminology under the GDPR legislation or regulation, they back down straight away. I mean, Eon is the name of the company, so I'm not saying anything wrong about them whatsoever, but they certainly turned tail and ran away and agreed to everything I asked for as soon as they actually put it to them that they're breaching data, and they can actually be fined even 4% of their actual annual turnover worldwide. So that's like going in, I think, minimum of 17 million. So these are the types of things that we can actually know if you educate yourself and you can use against them. I know that's just a little small thing, but it's still them taking your data, you see?
And it's not only that, it gives them a centralized control as well. If they wanted to turn off power, they could do that because of these smart meters. Smart meters, anything with the word smart has S for surveillance and M for monitoring. So anything smart is very dumb. Matt, what's your reaction when you hear that pushback on something as simple as not wanting a smart meter and being able to say no?
I like it. I love anything to push our sovereignty, but we're past this. We're past facial recognition. We're past finger recognition. We're past any of this. It's archaic now. As you're aware, we have nanotechnology that was injected into people. This is real. This is where the basis of my new movie is. We had a whistleblower who told us 2019 he was the project manager of a data collecting project with 5 countries or at the meeting in biotech. This was early 2019. With the project he was overseeing was to extract data from vaccinated people. This is where we're at. And I want people to understand this is bigger than Snowden. This is bigger than WikiLeaks. That was just collecting data on emails and phone calls. Look, this person came to us because he feared what he was hearing. He checks out. I can't stress it enough that people, one, just accept this is the reality that we're living under. We're past the facial recognition. That's old school here. We're talking about, look at RFK Jr. talking about wanting to push for make wearable things better, greater. Like this.
That was a shock last week.
Yeah. People, I'm not even going to say. I know some things that I don't want to divulge here because it's not my purview to do it. But I know things are compromised within places. Okay, I've been told this, and this is why we don't see certain things happen. Okay, but I do know that 70% of the populace of America is fully vaccinated with an experimental drug, vaccine, gene therapy. It's not even a vaccine. They say it's gene therapy. What does that mean? Oh my goodness. It stays in your DNA and changes your DNA. Everything involved with COVID and the push for it was been a lie. No one's been thrown in jail. No one's been even brought into a grand jury. And what I have from independent scientists around the world, you've interviewed them multiple times. They have found nanotechnology, self-assembling nanotechnology inside the vaccines. Okay, under microscopy. Now
it's horrific. It's horrific. I put out something across Asia.
Right? Yeah. There's a project manager who's using this application in real time. The project was successful. He left. He in his notes, and when you'll see, you're even in my trailer. I don't even know if you know that you one of your interviewers, a lady from the Philippines. She's in my new trailer and died 72. It's called Nano Sapiens because we're changing who we are as a species into a nanobots. Okay, they are changing our DNA. Through nanotechnology. I don't understand like the warnings I'm saying to this is not because I want to make a new movie. I didn't want to make either one of these movies, but when they're put in my lap, I have to do it. I have to warn the world of what we live in right now, and it's more advanced and sinister than you can even comprehend. And I'll just say this one thing: do you know Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino? You aware of this name?
Yes, I know the name. I know the name.
He was a theistic Satanist in our high rankings of our army.
Yeah.
Not like the LaVey Satanists of like do you what will and Aleister Crowley. No, he believed in the religion of Satanism, the Temple of Set. Okay, why I bring him up? He wrote a book called Mind War in 1980. He was involved with Operation Gladio, all mind control, MK Ultra. This is as real as you get. He was in our in a high level in our army. He wrote this book, and in this, they're trying to use electromagnetic waves through ionizing the air to create mind control. What are we doing with heavy metals, aluminum being sprayed, and now we're using 5G and things that are way more powerful and creating way more electromagnetics than we could even dream of in the 1980s. People, we are living in a new world, and a new world that says, Klaus Schwab, who says whoever can reign in this power of AI will control the world. He said this, okay, at the Arab Summit. This is a dangerous world we're living in right now. And you know what? I'll say this. There is no one under 40 in this talk right now. And I say this for the reason of this. They're not after us. They're after our children. They're conditioning our children not to think anymore. Just think about text messaging and how our language changed from what's up to sup to emoji. Right? The dumbing down of our brain to cognitively think because we just want to, we've been conditioned to take these. Obama made it mandatory we have these in our hands. They give them out for free. And now we're being conditioned to just, you want to go out to eat, you got to use your phone to scan the menu. It's these little things. It's the proverbial frog in the pot. And right now I'm starting to see the bubbles. It's starting to get a little bit too hot in here.
It's an extraordinary summary, Matt, and I wanted to talk about the link with 5G and that nanotechnology. You know, just a month ago or so, we put up that piece that you've used. You've used she's a Filipino lawyer, Tanya Lat. You've used her piece in that interview. Now, she was talking about a Pan-Asian conference they had where it was very clear in Asia, a lot of aluminium in the soil now. It's been dropped from the air. And they're finding nanotechnology everywhere, in their food, even in their mango plants, in their fish, everywhere. But what's interesting about that interview is there was a lot of pushback. I mean, even I have huge respect for the McCulloch Foundation, Peter McCulloch's foundation, but they don't yet acknowledge the nanotechnology. So
Can I say something to that?
Yes, I'd like you to address that.
Okay,
man.
So I interviewed Peter in 2021 for my film, The Greatest Reset. In May of 2021, before the vaccine, I was his first interview in a film, right? And I went back and interviewed him twice because we had a good talk, and it was alarming. But you know what? Laura Ingraham was his first interview, and no one knew him before that, you know. And he is a respectable man, but he won't say certain things out in public. What he told me was he saw things only that he could say were satanic, like Satan had a veil over their eyes, right? The doctors who were not treating people he had never seen before, he was like, it's Satan. Like he's a believer, but he understood what it was, and he said it on my film, right? He even admitted to seeing the magnetic phenomenon, right, of what people, but he won't go there because unfortunately, there's a game being played here, and some people, I won't say all, but there are some people who find to make a living from this catastrophe of COVID that they have to deal with that. And I'm not saying Peter is one of them, but he did admit to me who is behind it. He believes it's Satan. It's so evil. He's never seen anything. He won't go on Fox News and say that, correct? And he did acknowledge the magnetic phenomenon that was happening, but he won't publicly do it because we do live in like a world where we'll be put in this shelf, like, oh, you're a conspiracy theory. I wear the conspiracy theories like with a badge of honor because all my conspiracy theories are proven. I'm just ahead of the game. That's it.
It has to become a hat we wear with great honor, that tinfoil hat. It means we're critical thinkers. But Richard, I'd like your reaction to that, and then you, Peter Wilson, and then Peter McIsaac, because potentially when they really ramp up these 5G towers, could they then activate whatever this nanotechnology is, that there seems to be more and more evidence they've injected this micro technology into human bodies. So, Richard, your reaction to that as part of this AI scenario in the world?
Possibly. Well, probably. I think going back to the conversation I had earlier, I think that this should be brought forward again, is that when you have artificial superintelligence, even what's been injected into people is going to be, I mean, it'll be old technology compared to what we have coming under artificial superintelligence. The time that you will know that artificial superintelligence is actually is about to reveal itself is you'll wake up one morning and you'll hear a voice in your head and it'll say good morning to you.
Yeah, that technology's been around from the 70s. Yes, of course, you're right on.
It's just going to happen. There's going to be no need for what we will call direct microchips, an injection of nanobots, none of those things. No. If there are barriers to entry, as I keep saying, okay, technological barriers to create a massive surveillance state and control mechanism, they will all disappear in one night. And so will production, for instance, of, hypothetically, masses of robots. That'll disappear overnight. We are talking about artificial superintelligence, something that goes beyond anything you can comprehend. I think it was Arthur C. Clarke once said, the author, that whatever you can conceive of will one day actually be manifest. I mean, I'm not exactly a fan of that individual, Arthur C. Clarke, as a person, but there we go. But he was right. And certainly when it comes to...
Richard, how would that voice get in? I mean, are you talking about a sort of quantum field? Are you talking about...
I mean, the things that we can't work out, the things that you and I right now can't, in our minds, we think, well, the technology is just not there. How is this going to happen?
This is 2018. The Havana Project. This has already been used.
Yeah.
If I may, I interviewed the people who were with Isaac Cappy the day before he had his, unfortunate fall off that bridge. He was hearing songs and things coming outside, and you know what? The woman next to him in the car heard the exact same song that was going on in his head. This is real. This is real technology.
When I stood politically, this is just a small anecdote, but we stood against this government and we said, we're just going to be a government of the people, get in, deconstruct the centralized New Zealand government. We're going to be the beacon for the world. We'll do it. Just the people rising, really. But I'll tell you something had happened. The party secretary and I continually got sick, and we continually got sick in almost the same day. And after 3 or 4 illnesses, we thought, is this something coordinated? Are they able to do this through, what we're talking about, some kind of field? Peter Wilson, your reaction when you're hearing this discussion at this level, because I still love what you're offering. It's to mums and dads who are feeling overwhelmed. What can I do? You're offering something. But what do you feel when you hear this level of discussion?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I've heard, exactly the same kind of discussions. This is the type of conversations I have all at the time. And yeah, I accept all of it, by the way. I don't disbelieve anything that anybody has just said tonight. Totally got it, totally with it. But, the only thing that we have that you can have, apart from obviously, whatever your belief is, the creator, or call it God, or whatever it is you want to think, the only thing we have is pushback. We have no option. So you either sit and do nothing, or you actually try and push back. So the only way not the only way, but without having to run around with weapons and things like that, then the way to do it is by using the legislation that we're being given. So for instance, on the facial recognition side, for sure, everybody thinks that, when I'm trying to tell them and educate them that when these police pull up in these big vans, put signs up saying we're going to do facial recognition software in this street today, and they all think that they have to do that. And absolutely not. You don't have to do that. That itself is actual breaching GDPR as well as the human rights on many different levels. And we have case law where the chief constable of the South Wales police was prosecuted and found against for all of those breaches, where the one that actually prosecuted him got compensation for the breach of data and also the human rights breaches as well. So it is possible. Now they slowly sneak it back in. Well, maybe not many people read that story, but it's out there. It's actually on the government website that there is this case law in the High Court then, you know, but now I've seen plenty of videos where you've got the police grabbing a hold of people in the street saying, why are you hiding your face from that facial recognition? So I've been trying to push for a long time for people in all of these groups around the UK. They're in sovereign groups that they meet, some of them weekly, and discuss ways of trying to gain freedom. And I've been trying to get people to go to them and say, look, why aren't you queuing up at supermarkets, going in 5 minutes after each other and demanding your data from that great big screen you've just walked into? Yeah. And there's this big picture of you, right, walking into the supermarket or into a shopping center. Or why is it that you're trying to go and buy something just at that self-service till, because now they've got rid of all of the people that serve you, and you've got to go and work for the supermarket, but for free by serving yourself. And then there's that camera and all you can see is you. So why aren't you stopping then and going to the security manager and say, I need to get all my data on there, please? Them words itself, that is actually what they call a subject access request under Article 15 of the GDPR. And they have to actually supply it, or at least give you a route to supply it there and then. And any refusal at that very point is already a breach, and you can get compensation for that. Now, we've done it. We've got money out of it, but like, you know, compensation. But I mean, that's just like trying to niggle at them. But what if you were doing it every 5 minutes and there was 1,000 of you queued up? Now there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in all of these groups around the UK. So I'm even saying to them, why aren't you in queues going up to the supermarket or up to the shopping mall or whatever it is and saying, I need that data, right? And then given the order, you've got to give your details. People say, oh, I don't want to give me name and address. Well, don't play the game then. It's a game. You are going into public law. You either use it or you don't. But if you're going to do it, it's very powerful. Now, if I go in and do it and I get myself a few £100 or a few £1,000, I'm going to be like, yeah, I was good, but it's not going to bother them. But if I've got 1,000 of people like me going, I want that data, and then the next one goes in, I want that data, and I want that data, and that's just in one town, and then you've got 100 other towns and the people are doing it to the one supermarket chain, what's it going to do to that one supermarket chain when all of the data requests all have to go to head office? And they're going to have an administration nightmare that's going to close down their head office. And they're not going to be able to cope with it because they'd have to get 3,000 or 4,000 people in every single day just to do the SAR requests. That means they're going to fall behind and they're going to have to start paying out compensation on a daily basis, probably in the hundreds of times, which will be literally £400,000 or £500,000 a day. Now, if you only did it for 2,000 or 3,000 people around the UK, how long do you think it would take before they went, you know what, we have to get rid of these bloody cameras out of this shop. This is a nightmare, right?
That is brilliant. So wait a minute, what's the compensation paid for? Is that for their delay in getting the report back, or what's or compensation for taking our photos and taking our data? What are you compensated for in that scenario?
Yeah. Well, what happens is you're compensated for the actual breach. So let me describe what the breach is, though. So if you walk in and they've obviously got your image, okay, so you have to go and request that image. If you don't say anything, you don't doing it, you are actually consenting. But if you walk up and you say, well, I need to see my data that you've collected on that image there, whatever it would be, and then they have got to acknowledge it. And from the moment you say it, and it's very, very, very clear under UK GDPR, you can do a verbal SER as well as a written one. It doesn't have to be in writing. So what we do is we have a little camera, right? So we're filming the thing. We're not holding our phones up. We're not being blit. We've got a little camera filming it so they can see what's going on. And you request your data. And then they have 30 days to reply. And they have to respond in full GDPR compliance, i.e. they have to give you all of that data. So this is what I'm saying is the problem. Now, if they refuse, and we have a few security managers around the UK, which is hilarious, that have no idea what GDPR is. And the first thing they say was, well, no, you can't have it. It's against the law for us to give you your data, right? Which is ridiculous, but they don't know because they've never been trained correctly. So if they refuse, even if they come back an hour later and say, well, we'll give you it, it's too late. They've refused. That is a breach. You can put the claim in immediately after that refusal. That's all there is to it. Then you're going to get compensation. It's going to be medium, maybe about £1,000 because it's not a major breach of data, but it is a breach. But then let's just say that which 2 or 3 times the staff have been very polite. Oh, yeah, no problem. We'll sort this out. Then they have a calendar month to reply with all of your data. If they miss the calendar month, that's a breach. Therefore, you can claim compensation. So when a refusal, compensation, miss the 30-day, compensation. So what I'm saying, it's just an easy, what's a better way of protesting, right? Think of a protest. We want to go and march down to London. We're going to go march where it's like, what's it called again? Downing Street, where they've all gone home anyway. It's all empty buildings. They're all doing whatever they do, away. They couldn't give a toss what you shout and scream. You're actually giving the police, I'm sorry, but you're giving them an erection. You're giving them overtime. You're giving them a great time for that. This is great. This is, we're going to go and get him, get her. Let's get them away. What have you achieved? Absolutely nothing. Most of them go down and they're having a party and it's a great time. Fair enough. But why don't you save your energy, queue outside of one of them supermarkets, right? You go in, 5 minutes later, I'm going in, 5 minutes later, he's going in. I want my data. I want my data. I want my data. This will send ripples right the way through all of the corporations. Any corporation that takes a photograph or a video image of you needs to be done like this. Okay?
It's extraordinary.
So
it's extraordinary. Here we have a supermarket chain countdown that
we got to stop this. This is just ruining our business. And then they're going to tell the government.
Oh, Peter, it's extraordinary. We have a supermarket chain here in New Zealand, Countdown, that just quietly introduced all of that facial recognition without any discussion. I won't go to it, but my little protest means nothing. This is a protest that's effective. I want reactions from Matt and then Peter McIsaac and then you, Richard. Do you think that is a way for the real people who want to do something to feel we still have power?
I think it's like throwing a wrench into the cog for disruption, and I think it's a good way to do it. We see this on YouTube, a lot of this thing called the First Amendment auditors. They'll go in, so you can't do this into like a Walmart. That's a private company. They can kick you out and you can be trespassed. But what they do is they go into any public, like City Hall, police department, and they record, because we have a constitutional right of freedom of the press under the First Amendment to do so. So we if we don't use our rights, then we lose our rights. And I think this is a good way to civilly protest that. And it's not even a protest if it's just using the rights that we already have given to us through the Constitution. We can't ever forget the power we have as a populace, and that's what they try to do. They try to divide us through your sports teams or through your political whatever, through religion. There's all sorts of ways they try to divide us, right? We need to, the people who care about this, is unite and support. Okay, I can't stress this enough, and I say it with it almost sounds like impatiently, but it kind of is, because the films I make, I give for free. I can't charge for the things, the information that people, whistleblowers, are telling me, or people who see the evil in the world and want to, show what they're seeing, like an embalmer is noticing this thing. How else is he going to get it out into the world? But through my films, we digest those, right? In the way that I can put them in that's palpable, like a Netflix film, right? That's not just a PowerPoint. Hey, PowerPoint isn't going to do it. The power of film is so powerful. That's how I reverse engineer this and use the weaponization of indoctrination through film and entertainment. I do use that, but I put in truth in it, right? But I only can do so much. I need people to back us, support the films. I was going to mention this. So the Wellcome Trust, you know the name, correct?
Yes.
They're the largest private donation to medical advancements, you could say. Their new project is the Genome Project, where they're going to synthetically create DNA structure. They just gave 10 million pounds to do this. Do you know how hard it is for me to get $25 from somebody to support me on my films that I give away for free? Well, this is what we're talking about. The reason why they're very successful is because they have large bankers behind them, like George Soros, Bill Gates. But on our side, we're kind of like sovereign, so we kind of do things independent, right? Oh, we'll pray for you. Oh, I appreciate the prayer; it goes far. But what else are you gonna? What else are you doing? I say you need to go to support people like Jim, who's doing this. This costs money, time. Everybody's here on their own time. We need to help support the things that the people who are on the front line that are actually doing things. I risk my safety, my family's safety by the things I've done. I've come home to my side door being laid on my front yard. These are little things that we go through, right? Suspicious vans parked outside. This is a real deal world that we are involved with. But I feel that I'm called to do this. And I see that the most important thing we can do is to educate our populace. Do you know why we're being successful? Because the people in the turn of the century didn't even think we'd have a thing called the internet. We are so smart, and God has made us so intelligent that we can see their plans from centuries old and put them together. Now they have supercomputers that they're trying to use, right? And we have to do something about this. What we do is educate the populace, but we need to come together and help support what we're doing. Either it's a share, a dollar amount, whatever it is, put some skin in the game.
I think that's such an important call. And those who are very wealthy, who think their money will inure them from this world of AI and control, that it won't. So use your money now wisely. So Matt, give us your address if people want to support.
Yes.
And then Peter, I want you to mention your book as well. But what's your address if people want to support you?
D like dog, DS2, like died suddenly 2, ds2nano.com. It's just me. I'm the lone filmmaker here. I go and shoot, edit. I have my partner Ed here, who is great with resourcing and finding facts. And look, we've been doing this for like 10 years on this beat. But man,
it's
what
extraordinary.
we were able to do with Died Suddenly 2 weeks after that came out, the military mandate was ended. 2 weeks. So
yes,
there were amazing whistleblowers in there, like Lieutenant Colonel Teresa Long, who was as a whistleblower. She's an amazing woman. Pete Chambers, who was in the Army, who's now running for Texas governor. He just announced today.
Wow.
Go support him. He is a real deal American hero. If you're in Texas and you have you love humanity, go and stump and vote and help Pete Chambers. He hasn't. I think he announced it today. He's
That's
a great
brilliant.
man.
And we have your address up there on screen. If people can donate something for your films are really powerful. I love Peter McIsaac, what Peter Wilson said earlier about the people in the streets, just doing that and bringing groups together to go and, what did Peter call it? What did Matt call it? Putting a wrench in the system, a little wrench in this ginormous system that's trying to swallow up humanity. Peter McIsaac, what was your reaction to Peter Wilson's ideas of stopping the supermarket through the facial recognition protest?
Well, actually, it's brilliant. And one of the things that most of my friends, all of us, 100%, we will not shop any place that doesn't accept cash.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I'm all about sitting down, eating dinner and eating the whole thing. When they say we don't accept cash, I said, well, I have cash to offer. And how are we going to fix this up? And either you go take your cash or I'm going to leave. I'll say, look, I've offered. I'll go on my camera and say, look, I've offered to pay you. If you're not willing to accept my money, I'm leaving. See ya.
Well, I loved what Aaron said in the last hour, towards the end, Peter, of your last hour. He said, we may have to find a system that isn't linked to fiat currency. We may have to start bartering. There were civilizations that bartered in beans. And you can laugh at that, but that's a very sensible way to have a money system. And why I think that's sensible is you can't store beans. Somebody like Larry Ellison can't store billions of beans. They'll go off. So you have to circulate your currency. We need a new kind of currency system that's far away from CBDCs and digital ID. Richard, we're in the last 5 minutes, so I want to go to you. You have spoken in the other hours. Get on our knees and pray that this devilish system is turned towards the good and not towards the evil they would have at the moment. What's your advice to the mums and dads who are listening to this and feeling overwhelmed, as many of us are? What can they do? What can we all do, Richard, in your view?
Well, as you said, pray on our knees and pray, I think, is one of the most important things. And that's not to be taken lightly either, because it is an action. Aside from that, sorry, going back to what Peter mentioned with this whole thing with the supermarkets, I think one of the important thing is don't go to supermarkets anymore. That's the important thing. You can avoid them, is just don't go. I mean, I get my meat. I'm pretty much carnivore these days again, and I get my meat from the butchers, and it's fantastic. You know, you feel good when you eat. Instead of living down that middle aisle, in a supermarket where you go and everything is just literally poison. It's addictive poison. Okay. So avoid the supermarkets. Go to the what we call in Britain your butchers, your bakers, and your candlestick makers. Okay, that's it. You know, that's where you've got to go. That's where you've got to shop and try and avoid the supermarket. It's very difficult, especially if you're living in a city and we're used to this society where everything is convenience. You can just pick your phone up and you can have it delivered right to your doorstep. Except you can't if it's obviously local produce. And again, local produce, stock up on it. Just shop local and think local. I think that's my personal advice to everybody.
I think that's very good. Go to local markets, go to farmers markets. I've linked in with a farmer who will give me half a beast and we can stock up the freezer. It's incredible. And support our farmers by directly buying from them. So, Matt, your advice to the mums and dads out there who take cognizance of all that you say. It does feel like at a huge level, there are enormous forces overwhelming us. Trump is questionable. He seems to be pushing this and promoting people like Larry Ellison, who's come down here for the yachting, a man with far too much money and far too little sense, in my view. What can the mums and dads do against people of that level of power?
I have a son who is 11 and a daughter who's 7.
Wow.
I don't hold anything to them to the extent of like talking like real to them. I don't show them scary things. I'll censor it to a degree, but I want them to know the world we live in, the education system. They're going to lie to you because they want to control you. They don't want to give you the truth. First of all, I have them rooted in the Bible to show them that is you want. God gave you the playbook already. He gave you this. There's not one thing that you're going to go through life that someone in that book didn't go through. And principled. We need to get back to a principled life, one that is yearns for just loving life. There's a lot of depression out there, especially with the youth. And I want to just encourage them to talk to your kids as they are not a burden, or you're on your phone. Get away from your phone. Talk to them. Look them in their eye. Have time with them. The more that we can unite as a people and have love for each other, that is what they want to do. They want to separate us from the love. And that's what we are. We're called to love our enemies more than just the people who love us. It's easy to love the ones who love you. But when we show that we love the people that we're talking up against, that conquers a lot. There is a definite line in the sand right now of good and evil. But we need to be that light of love and that salt that never changes but adds flavor to the life.
How beautifully said, Peter McIsaac. I'm going to finish with you, Peter Wilson, the last word. But Peter McIsaac, you, along with the Bible, you have a very important book. Not quite at the Bible level, but I would recommend it to everybody. The Redneck Conservative, isn't it, Peter McIsaac? And that is telling people how to live in a world really as independently as possible from government control, is it not? And you're on mute, Peter, just
Actually,
to bring you. Yeah, there you are.
39 chapters in, and every chapter covers something, guys. And just a fair warning, it's about as politically incorrect as any piece of literature has ever been. And if you're far to the left, you will be highly probably upset. So I put some stuff in there after chapter 3. You'll probably want to throw it in the garbage. But for your conservative minded or any folks that, with common sense, it's a great book. You can pick it up at Amazon. And it's kind of a manual on how to get through a lot of what we're dealing with today. There's a lot of rabbit holes to go down there. As a matter of fact, there's more rabbit holes than most people can deal with. And the reality is that we tend to give people dumb truckloads of information when a lot of them are still only ready for a tablespoon. But we have to start somewhere. And that book's a real good place to start. And forums like this. And guys, thanks very much for being on. We really do appreciate you showing up.
Oh, it's been wonderful having you all on. So last word to you, Peter Wilson. Can people sign up to learn more about the system you've refined and understand so beautifully and articulated so well when they want to get groups together and do these little bits of pushback that make people feel we, the people, have much power that we often don't realize we have? Where can people get hold of you, Peter Wilson?
Yeah, well, I mean, YouTube, I have a YouTube channel and TikTok channel, and even on X, I think is Checkmate the Matrix, all the same. And that's also the name of the actual private group that we have, which is on school.com. So it's all Checkmate the Matrix. so they can just go and have a look and see what we're doing. Obviously, I put a lot of videos out on YouTube. They can watch and get the gist of it, and we basically lay it all out. You know, it's literally there. They can literally do exactly what we're saying in the video, and being able to pick everything up, be it from protecting themselves against intruders like any kind of government debt collectors or any agencies like that, or it tied in with the power companies, like I said before, right down to doing proactive things like, you know, approaching anyone where there's a CCTV camera. You know, we've even been able to save people's employment because they were accused of things, and what we did is demand through GDPR the actual CCTV footage, which proved the opposite of what everybody else was saying and saved people's jobs. So it is an incredibly powerful tool to be able to use when you do it for the good.
And your advice, so there's one way for the mums and dads, and a final word to you on your advice for people who feel scared in the way the world is going. Are you a man of deep faith, or are you a man of deep action, it sounds like, Peter? Well, both.
Definitely of deep faith as well, you know, and that's what I say. Make sure that you are right. You know, I would just use the word the creator, you know, and rather than other words, but, you know, make sure that you are aligned correctly and that you are standing on the right side. And 100% you are from something far more powerful than what they could ever try and do. No matter what they try on any supercomputers or super AI or whatever it would be, they can't be more powerful than what we've got, than what we came from and what we're going to return to. So always look to that.
What a powerful final word. And to all of you, my deepest thanks. It's been a really interesting hour and it's gone far too quickly. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
But guess I better add myself here. Well, welcome back to the almost 16,000 folks that are tuned in to this live discussion and panel. Wow, what an impressive 3 hours coming into what I'm sure is going to be a banger of a final hour. First up, I want to say thank you to Matt and Richard, who have unexpectedly and quite so generously turned a 1 hour segment into sharing with all four segments of ours today. So I hope we're going to get into a little bit more different dialogue than some of what we've had before. Jim, you had the privilege the first hour. We're going to throw Bryce Wade and Matthew Pauly into the mix here as well. And I'm just going to give you guys a quick out there that are tuned in on who these gentlemen are. Bryce does a Friday show with myself on my Canadian platform called What's Up Canada, where we dive into a lot of some of these things. So this is his ball of wax when we have discussions. So thanks for joining us, Bryce and Matthew. Somebody that you're deeply steeped in resisting the current wave of tyranny. Matt, you and I think it's unusual that you and I could have so many convergences of people that we know and have worked with and associated with, but yet have not had a one-on-one discussion. We're going to have to fix that real soon, my friend. This has been very enlightening getting to know you in such a deeper level, and yourself, Richard, and your platform that you work on too. You guys both are in my platform regularly, and this is to me and this is where I want to start off with this, because what we're up against is the collective, but everybody here is an example of the power of one. And that's where I want to start off with, a boost in everybody's socks right now, because there is so much power in the power of one and what we can do moving forward just by having the courage and the fortitude and the faith to do what's right, not what's easy. And courage begets courage, and we're leading the way. When we started this project less than a year ago, we had no idea what this was going to turn into, but it's global moving, global powering. But today we're here to talk about, one of the many tentacles, and there are many, and some that haven't maybe been addressed so much. Earlier on, we talked about CBDCs, and Bryce, he's got some powerful insights on that. But in Canada specifically, and this is, I think, a harbinger to the world, what just happened this week is monumental with the complete collapse of trade negotiations between Canada and the US. This sets up the UBI program almost like a crisis, and with the bills and the laws that they've manifested, this is the emergency that puts Canada under a different kind of tyranny, front and center, I think, than others have. Richard, in the UK, Jim, you guys know this, people getting put to prison for Facebook posts, the two standards of law. But Matt, your thoughts on the power of one. You are, in my opinion, because I look at through a different lens, one of the most powerful people on earth right now, because at the end of the day, the longest, most powerful people in the world have been the storytellers. We are the ones that gets to share and communicate outside of whatever regime approves in that day and age, and whatever struggles they're facing. It's the storytellers that keep things real. So the power of one as a motivator to you, Matt, and it's a humble privilege to share some time with you.
Well, thank you so much. And I think that it's not just one, but it is. And what you're saying, it takes that first step. You have to get out of bed. You have to make the decision to say, hey, am I going to go along with something that I'm not happy with, or am I going to do something to make change? And I always bring it back to the Bible. Like, we wouldn't know about the Bible unless Luke was there, unless, Matthew was there, and here's storytelling. He was writing it down, writing a book, is in pages. If he had a camera, he would probably have been recording it. It is what we use to talk about past things, what we learn from them. And the thing that I do with my films, I know they're controversial, but there's so much warfare for our minds and for what is truth out there. And we know, like, history is made by the victors, right? And even our history has been manipulated, right? Because certain things want to be told. But the truth always comes out. It will always come to the level, to the top. It's very important. I use my films as this. I'm going to pass away whenever it is, but my films will last forever. Say they're successful in their plans of Agenda 2030 and 45 and whatever it is, right? I know, though, that there'll be people who, if they have to watch my films in an underground bunker, it will give them some kind of, push, encouragement to say there were people who were seeing this for what it was back then. And hopefully all their plans change and we look at this differently. But right now it is what it is. And right now humanity is under attack. Okay? That is just how it is. I'm sorry. It is what it is. And I'll say the power of film. I was at a local place getting a sandwich. There was a 17-year-old who was making a sandwich. He didn't know who I was, who was talking about died suddenly. A 17-year-old was talking about a vaccine film that everybody would call, like, I don't know, conspiratorial, whatever. And that's the reason we put all the conspiracies at the beginning, like Bigfoot, and it's because we knew what they were going to say about the film. But we're using that and reversing that and saying, you're going to have to deal with this, okay? These aren't my words of them wanting to depopulate the world, okay? This is from their literature. It starts with one, but I can't do it without everybody's support. And when we're talking about people who send money, because my films are self-funded by people's donations. If you look at The Greatest Reset, there is thousands of people who put their name on the film, because if you donate to my film, I put your name on the credits. I give you an IMBD credit because I want it to be a brick in the wall. I did something. I as a person saw this. I can't go out and shoot with him or film or whatever, but I can donate to him and I can put my name on that project. You go look at The Greatest Reset, there's 7 minutes of people's names on that film because they believed in what it was. And hopefully I don't have to make any more films like this. I hope not. I make other films. I make films about my ministry that are amazing, that show the power of God and Christ, because there's some really amazing good things happening. Right now, though, this film has to be made, and you understand why.
Yeah, it comes down to one of the things that we all here have in common, even though it's just the first time some of us may have met, is that, we don't do what we do to tell people what to think. We just want people to give things to think about that really matter, and that it takes a lot of different approaches. Richard, what you guys do on the Jeff Taylor Show is outstanding and unique, and that's the couple of guys. Matt, you started out, yes, in the industry, but you're one guy. And Matthew, I've only known you a short time, like a year or so, and Bryce, Jim, the same thing 2 years ago. Probably none of us would have expected to be meeting in a place and time like this, having the discussions that we're having here right now. But we're doing it anyways, because that's what's necessary, and that's what we need to do. And I think, Matt, you've been saying this is bigger than anything we've ever seen before. Bryce, you've been saying this. Matthew, you've just come back from Japan, I think it was. And
in China, yeah.
Yeah, so you're seeing a lot of this because you've been active in our communities, having all of this. Where do you see, today's show? We could talk about all of the things because there are many. It is entirely connected. It's a giant web and network, and it's the most nefarious, sophisticated evil that is out there. But today, to kind of focus on some of the reset tools, I think that's what's on the horizon this year. In the next 12 months, we're going to see CBDCs becoming an actual necessity for survival in this avatar verse. Digital IDs, Aaron was saying, to an extent, the infrastructure is already there. We're already doing it. We're already using it. Artificial intelligence has become, all of these things have become too big to fail, and the infrastructure is, becoming that infrastructure, and it's going to, all of us, if you don't exist with approval in the avatar universe, you will be genocided in some capacity. Some quick highlights and thoughts on those basic things, Matthew, visually from the east you just came back to where we're at, and what you see coming in Canada.
Sure. I'll just start by saying, overall, I spent about a week in Japan and about 2 weeks in China, and I'd never been to Japan before. And one of the things I noticed is that the people, first of all, as per the stereotype, are very polite and very honorable, and the streets are absolutely clean. No one lets any litter hit the street, and the economy seems to be relatively okay, and people are all busy and engaged and very friendly. The situation, when we went to China, but by the way, the air is really clean too in Japan, and the food is amazing. Very, very healthy food. Like the 7-Eleven selection is like home cooked kind of meals of stir fries and slices of pork or whatever you want, and you can take it home or heat it up there. Even the natto, there's the fermented soybean curd that natto kinase is from, which is the part of the base spike protein detox protocol, is available at 7-Eleven. So the products and services they have are quite different, much more healthy. China, as per, this is my 6th trip there because of family. The WeChat application is the sort of the one application which I think is the goal for X as well. So it has basically the currency transactions you do through WeChat. So it's a digital ID service as well. And you can just flash your phone at stores. And it's progressed now so that this trip, there were some stores that weren't taking cash, but most of them were still. But like here in Toronto, people are less comfortable or less practiced with cash than they were before. There are turnstiles everywhere when you're going into public transit, so that you have to actually scan with your your digital ID for regional trains and airports and all that kind of thing. And if you don't have that, you can't get through the turnstile. And so that is in fact what the goal is, right, for the West with the rollout of digital IDs, and CBDCs require that really, there is a little bit of a slowdown there economically because of the slowdown in the West, and of course they export much of everything that we get is coming from China, constructed in China. So they've in turn, because we've had a bit of a slowdown, because a deliberate tanking of the economy, in my opinion. It's not just my opinion, it's the wasteful spending causing massive inflation, and the whole cratering of the US dollar and the euro dollar, the euro thing. So anyway, they're experiencing it. When I just asked randomly, anecdotally, this isn't scientific, but every time I got into a taxi cab driver, I would use my app that translated to Mandarin, and my wife would tell me what and translate back when they answered the question as to, is it slower now than it was a year ago or the same? And pretty well uniformly, it's slower, approximately 20% than it was. That being said, the people are, the economy is still working. It just, it's sort of like the small businesses are hurting it, which is to be expected.
So it's just a short, my thought on that is already without the digital connection, it's almost impossible to live or exist over there right now, or very difficult at least in the urban centers.
That is correct. Certainly, if you want to travel, go on a transit train that's beyond the local subway. You're not going anywhere without your digital ID. And I actually did encounter a situation where someone presented their ID that was not up to date or something, and got into a shouting match with the person, and the other person, like they're working, for the railway company, was quite heated as well about the whole thing. So that's the kind of thing. At least there's a human being there. The problem is some of these turnstiles, there is no human being. So it's AI, right? So, yeah.
So I'm going to kind of take a little bit of a loop around the Atlantic here on this, and start with Bryce, and because I know Jim's got some thoughts on this, but with the newfound courting of our liberal infiltrators, aka economic hitmen, that are trying to marry up Canada with the EU, and the rush to the central bank digital currencies that these guys are all on. This is where Jim will have some things to say about that, and I'm sure Richard will too. But this decoupling of the U.S. economy to the Canadian economy, how close? What kind of a runway do you think we have left, Bryce, on trying to dodge the bullet on this CBDCs? And we know that this is directly tied to the universal basic incomes that they've been demanding to promote, and because of the alien invasion of the country, literally millions, almost 1 million every quarter in this country. These are almost now critical mass emergencies for our country to come into full alignment with the EU and the CBDCs, Bryce.
Yeah, like this is a classic Hegelian dialectic. They've created all of these problems. You can look back for 10 years at all of the policies that the liberals have put in. I call them communists because basically this is where a lot of these Marxist ideologies and policies come from. Are Soviet era Marxist ideas, and they've been repurposed and rebranded for a modern audience that doesn't know history and doesn't know what these mean and what they actually have an effect on. Argentina was destroyed for 100 years because socialists got in power and they destroyed everything, and now we're walking down the same path just like the EU is. And I just made a response to one of Carney's posts on X this morning, actually, before I hopped on, because they were all hot and bothered about, oh, we're going to be closer to the EU. We have nearly $1 trillion worth of trade that goes between Canada and the US. We are a supplier of goods and services to the US. That is the majority of our economy. Period. You cannot move that type of train. We're talking about, the Freedom Train International here. Well, economy is like a train, right? It goes in a direction, and if you bring on more things, then you have a bigger and wider train that's, bringing more stuff in a certain direction. You can't turn that around and send it somewhere else at the drop of a hat. And the important thing to understand here about our economy, right, is it's integrated by roads, not ships. There isn't enough ships on the planet to service that level of goods that Canada would have to push to the EU. It's so mind-bogglingly stupid that the people are like, hey, we're just going to be part of the EU now. On what planet does that make sense? Like, the EU is in decline. For all the people in the EU there, like, this is a problem that you guys are facing just like us. Because of the socialist policies that are being implemented across the West, we have massive immigration, which pushes down labor, where we don't have enough economic activity because China creates all of our manufacturing. How does that work, right? So one of the good things that I really applaud Trump for is putting up some of these trade barriers against China to reduce our dependence on China. What is required to be self-sufficient? And I love the thing that you've said previously, Wayne, which is the answer to globalization is localization, right? Because everybody really has to understand this, right? This is a fight that we're in for survival of your community, wherever your community is. It's in a physical location somewhere, right? So you have to think of, what does my community produce, and what do I have access of to trade with and create economic activity with other communities in my regional or nationalistic or what's the other continental area, right? So we were integrated with the continental US because they were our biggest trading partner. The liberals spent 10 years torpedoing all of the other opportunities that we had. Germany, Japan, and 2 other countries came like, hey, we'll buy all your stuff. And Trudeau moronically said, no, there's no business case for us selling you resources that you want. Like, the amount of unbelievable stupidity that these people put forward is just unfathomable in some point, unless you accept that this is intentional. And this is what really gets me, is that if you just look at the math of all of the things that these people are doing, it's suicidal. Like, it doesn't even make sense. How could you possibly say that we should import 1 million people a year when we don't only create 250,000 houses, and we're in a declining market where we don't have enough jobs for the people that are already here? That is an indefensible policy.
in just before I get to you, Jim, on this, because we've got an international community, they may not be aware of this, that in 2025, Canada is bringing in 3.2 plus million non-English speaking, non-skilled permanent residents into Canada. And, Matt, America might be dodging a bullet on this one. And Richard and Jim, the EU and you guys might be taking that bullet when you realize that Canada didn't have the capacity to build 4 ships. So Mark Carney just attributed $1 billion to China to build 4 ships for Canada. So Matt, economically, America might be dodging a bullet here, and Richard and Jim, you guys are taking one for the team by marrying up with Canada and their delusions, basically incorporated by the same economic national hitman, Mark Carney. Jim.
Wow, where do I start? Well, look, first of all, I'll start by saying thank you once again. I echo the sentiments that you gave right at the start there, Wayne, with Richard, who I have to say I'm delighted to have met you, Richard. I've followed the work that you've done, as we said in the first segment. It's outstanding, absolutely outstanding. It's delighted to have you on the show. And of course, Matt, you and Richard have been in for the 4-hour marathon, so really appreciated that input from you guys. Of course, Matt, you've been on with me many times. I've been on your show. Great guy, and I really appreciate the work that Dies Suddenly are doing. Matthew Pauly, wonderful to see you, mate. We were running a space last night. I was trying to get you up as a speaker. I had a little problem with another lady called Anne. There was a major thunderstorm, and after 3 hours and 13 minutes, we crashed. So I apologize, but great to see you, mate, here. Really good to see you, Matthew.
Thank you.
Once again, Bryce, you and I met each other when I was in Calgary the last time I was in Canada, and I'm delighted once again that you're here as well. You've been on with us before. We've known each other for a while now, and it's really amazing to. It's great to see you guys here. As you know, yeah, a little bit of feedback coming in there. As you know, I was a Brexiteer. I stood with the Brexit Party as a European and Westminster parliamentary candidate. I fought alongside Nigel Farage in the trenches against the EU Commission. And I never had a problem with the European Parliament because they're democratically elected. But I did have a big problem with the EU Commission, who are never elected. They're just appointed. And of course, the European Parliament are the only lawmakers in the world that cannot pass any laws themselves unless the unelected bureaucrats in the EU Commission say so. They are globalists. They are hardcore globalists. So what's going on between America and Canada right now is very interesting. But of course, what we're talking about here tonight, I have to say, has been an incredibly powerful show. And I pay tribute to our other ambassadors, Liz Gann and Peter McIsaac, who have done a fantastic job tonight with their amazing guests. I thought Peter from the UK was astounding. I'm going to be reaching out to Peter, and we're going to be looking at, because I feel a campaign coming on. I was listening very carefully to what he was saying about data protection, GDPR, and all of the things going with that. So there's going to be a lot happening. But I think that the last thing Canada wants to do is have greater alignment with the EU. They're in free fall. Their economy is mince. And Germany is the powerhouse of the economic-driven economy in Europe. And they're in recession. They are doing very, very badly. So Canada pinning their flag to the EU is not a good idea. They really should be doing more work with President Trump's administration and America. They're very much aligned in so many ways. There are big differences there. But, you know, Canada is where it's at. And I think what we've been witnessing over the last few years in Canada, and now that Carney's in there, is going to accelerate. The WEFers, the World Economic Forum, the globalists under Mark Carney are probably far more dangerous than when Trudeau was there, because Carney is a lot smarter than Trudeau. Trudeau was never the sharpest tack in the box, in my opinion. A thoroughly unpleasant individual, of course. So that's my sort of take on that, Wayne. I'll happily take any questions or hand back. This is your segment, and I'm delighted to be on with you.
Well, I was kind of going and wanted to go with Richard next year on this. You know, you must be aware of the similarities and some of the differences of the trajectories that Canada is on compared to parallel to what you guys are going on in the UK. I think that's one of the things that makes it, you know, so important that we get together and continue to have these kinds of conversations internationally, because I think we get stuck in this dichotomy of thinking it's only us, it's only my country, where it's not. It's the same nations are all experiencing the same infiltration and, you know, for lack of a better word, treason by so many of the same individuals. That, you know, what do you see coming from your lens over there in what you're seeing, Richard?
It's coordinated. Okay, that's the first thing. Everything that's happening right now is coordinated, even though there may appear to be slight differences. Now, this is quite interesting. It's like initially when Trump came in, there was a bit of an enthusiasm. I mean, it was like, good grief, you know, there's hope. And then all of a sudden, certain things started creeping through, and I thought, now, would I rather have Trump in or Kamala Harris? No brainer. But then again, I have to ask myself, am I being presented by an excellent piece of theater here? You know, am I to trust everybody that's right in front of me just because I hear some good things? This is the problem. Your point, your question earlier, Wayne, was about the power of the one. And it comes back to that. It does. The one, the individual, needs to have a mental digital detox from information in some respects, to take yourself away from what we are told is the absolute truth and the empirically observed, because what we're finding is that that's not necessarily the case. What we're finding is what is empirically observed is false and fake. Right now, you've got AI giving us examples of, I don't know if you've seen some of this VEO3. It's getting borderline. You can't tell the difference between what is real and what is not real. So the individual right now has to start being very discerning on where they're getting their information from. This is the big problem we've got, is that AI is going to disrupt everything. We're not going to know what is real and what is not real. Yeah. Now, as I said, here in the UK, it's obvious. We've got Keir Starmer. You've got Mark Carney, who was, funny enough, our former governor of the Bank of England. And a great job he did there, incidentally. Yes, no. But what we actually have here is a scenario where there's clearly no hope. Oh, but hang on, we've got Nigel Farage coming in. Now, whether Nigel Farage is the answer to everything, I don't know. All I do know in the United Kingdom, if Nigel Farage does not deliver, then we're looking at a very dark scenario. You're going to start finding the things that Dr. David Betts has been talking about coming to play, because there's so much talk at the moment about civil war coming to the United Kingdom. Now, I have to reiterate, living in the United Kingdom, especially, I am not inciting or encouraging it. I'm just reading the room and reading what is coming down the track towards us. These are the important things to realize.
I want to finish this. Let Matt get his thoughts in on this Mark Carney before we welcome Alex. And I think we've had a little bit of a timing miscommunication, Alex, on when we were all getting together. But very, very grateful for you to find a few minutes to join us. I know you're an incredibly busy individual, exerting the power of one out there in big and detrimental ways to the satanic lullaby that seems to have captured the planet, in my opinion. But Matt, your thoughts on what you heard there about the recent news of Canada and the predicament that we find ourselves in under Mark Carney. From your lens,
interesting enough, I'm going to the people who commissioned the Great Canadian Awakening Conference a few years ago have reached out to me, and I will be in Ottawa a few weeks, starting on a film about the trucker convoy. I think people here in the States have no idea what happened to you guys and what an amazing story that was. We kind of went through it a little bit here with the J6 stuff. Those people still would be in jail if Trump didn't pardon them. So I'll be up there. There's a woman, I think, going to jail for mischief. Whatever that charge is, mischief. Don't be mischievous there in Canada. It's unfortunate what's happening in Canada because you guys are our neighbors, but you're still under the UK banner somehow. After all these years, I thought you might take some kind of lessons from us in the 1776 thing we did, but you decided not to do that for some reason, and you are in the situation you are because they've taken control over you guys in so many different things. Us too, like immigration, we know what it is. Immigration it's a sense of warfare. Okay, Soros and his things, it's utilization of people to infiltrate a country to lose sovereignty. Right? Economically, there's catastrophes with it. It's a social issue, though, because like, how dare you not want people to come here? It's not that. And it's the way that they come to the heartstrings. Your country's been taken over and it's a wave from Davos, the Davos crew. Anybody who's on the website as a contributor or a young leader of Davos, you cannot elect those people in your offices. And it's the lack of education to your populace that allows these people to continually get positions of power. I don't know here in the United States how much elections are real. I have a big problem with what happened in 2020. Stuff
There's
has
still
happened.
A lot of unanswered questions there that need to happen, and there needs to be justice served on a lot of different levels for America too. And before I kick over to Alex here, you mentioned the WEF, and that I've been arguing that Canada is literally experiencing a coup, a stolen government by an unelected foreign entities, i.e. the Davos WEF syndicate. Speaking with CSIS agents, former CSIS agents, they basically corroborate that. So Alex, you're very incredibly up to speed on this, more so than most. Is there anything inaccurate of what we're saying here, and what do you see the timeline on the final capture of Canada under CBDC's digital ID, this AI industrial complex that basically, in my opinion, Canada's a show pony, the unicorn that they're trying to capture first in the West, so that they can say, see, communism works.
Yeah, well, thank you. Great to be here, and sorry if we had a time miscommunication. I think that'd be the second time. It's hard to coordinate across.
Just our other Liz will be shattered that she didn't get a chance to speak to you, but I'll take that opportunity any day.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, we had coordinated 5:30 Eastern time, which I know we messed it up last time, but anyways, it's great to be with you guys. Thank you. Yeah, what's happening in Canada, obviously very troubling. I don't think they'll be able to get to their final objective until they can stir up some more crises. Just a few years ago, the World Economic Forum started talking about the prospect of a polycrisis, the polycrisis of doom. And I think that's what's really going to be the catalyst, if they can get away with it, to bring about this final shift into totalitarianism with central bank digital currencies, with digital IDs for being able to access anything at all, very much including the internet, your money, your bank account, etc. Those types of changes are so big that they'll be very, very difficult to sell organically. They need people to be in a panic. So remember what happened during COVID, right? Everybody was stampeded into total fear, where their brains, at least the rational part of their brains, shut down, and they're just in terror about dying, about getting sick, whatever the case may be, killing grandma. I think they're going to need something like that, only far more scary. The COVID thing, it worked the first time on most people, but I think so many people woke up after the last one, they're going to need something much more significant. So I'm not, predicting the future. I'm not pretending to be some kind of prophet. I certainly don't have a crystal ball, but I expect, just based on what we know about tyrants, that they will unleash some sort of mega crisis, probably, as the World Economic Forum says, a polycrisis, involving everything from a financial cataclysm. Maybe that'll be some sort of currency crisis, followed by or preceded by collapse in the stock market, collapse in the real estate market, all kind of merging into one economic super crisis. We've had David Webb here in the United States warning us about the Great Taking. And when I first came across that, I thought that's just too much. I mean, I know these globalists, like, people are not that dumb. We would have caught on. So what happened? I got a phone call from some people who work at a very prominent conservative think tank, and they called me and they said, "No, Alex, we actually looked into 3 Democrat states and 3 Republican states, and every single one of them had those changes that David Webb has described. So the mechanisms are already in place to loot everybody's stocks, bonds, securities, if and when an economic crisis comes." So I think that'll be a big component of it. And then combine it with something that maybe World War III, right? We know the globalists love world wars and global conflicts to advance their agenda. So I think if you combine those things, some sort of economic crisis that scares everybody to death, maybe with a war that ends up killing large numbers of people, and then maybe, for good measure, some sort of pandemic, some sort of public health scare, some sort of environmental scare. You add all those things together to where people are scared of their own shadows, and then Canada, some of the Scandinavian countries, maybe the UK, will be at least mostly ready to embrace the kinds of policies that we're talking about. And maybe Americans too. I mean, I know Canada seems like it's much further down the road to tyranny, but what we learned from COVID is that even Americans, who I always thought more highly of, if they're scared enough, they will go along with this. So I think that's probably what's in the near to medium term future, if we're not careful, if we don't expose and stop these people before they unleash the crises on us.
I kind of think in my own, situational awareness, I think I see Trump trying to dodge the static, the hot war in World War III that we see. But in the meantime, and Bryce would probably speak to this, the economic assassination of Canada under, what's not just what Carney has done so far, but what he's got planned and what's coming. That might just be the crisis where that gives them the solution for the justification of the UBI, which is big on their radar already, on all of that. So hopefully we can diffuse the fear tools that they need for their reset. And that was a term that Jim brought up about the reset tools. What do you think, Jim, are the flags that internationally all of our countries should be watching for to try and be preemptive against these reset tools between so many different nations?
Well, one of the things that I discovered when I came up with the concept of Freedom Train International was what actually happened in the Canadian freedom movement. I was inspired by them. I met all the leaders from Tamara Lich to Harold Juncker to Chris Barber and all of the other veterans that were involved when I went over to Canada. And when I started to investigate and look at Canada, the political structures, what was going on there, and at the time under Biden, then Australia, New Zealand, I was reaching out to people. I spent 15 months building that network before I even launched Freedom Train International. So I had a deep knowledge. Over the last few weeks, I suppose the last 6 weeks, 7 weeks now, I've traveled into Romania. I was there at the presidential campaign for George Simeon. I've been in Hungary, Budapest. I've been in Cork in Ireland. I've been in the Netherlands, and latterly I was in Paris, France. And I can tell you that what is happening in Canada is happening in many other nations. There is a path, there is a similarity to how these things are being determined and rolled out. A little bit like the mantra Build Back Better, when all these national leaders and members of the royal family and presidents were all coming out with exactly the same rhetoric. All the hallmarks of a psychological operation, and that is most likely, going back to Alex's point, that is most likely going to be happening again. But we're starting to educate people through Freedom Train International and many of the other partners that we have in other groups around the world to encourage people to understand with a critical thinking mind what those signals are. So people are waking up to it. That actually puts the globalists on the back foot, because we are in fact winning the information war. But that actually makes them, like a cornered animal, much more dangerous. I want to go back to what Alex was talking about there, and I think he's absolutely right. When not long after I arrived in Paris, I was contacted by someone from a covert international intelligence agency, and the reason they contacted me was because they were extremely worried about a false flag that is being planned in Ukraine against Russia that would be tactical, a tactical nuke going off. They could take the form of an attack on a Baltic fleet or the assassination of a NATO leader or in a NATO country. These are the real deal. I don't know who all they're connected to. The interview that I did was, by their insistence, completely masked. I mean, I couldn't see who they were. Their voice was disguised, but the information that they imparted and the way they spoke about the intelligence apparatus left me no doubt that they were who they say they were. So going back to Alex's point, I think there is a high likelihood of war. We see that being ramped up in the United Kingdom now. Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, saying we need to get ready for the Russians to invade us. The rhetoric is off the scale, and it makes the situation ever more dangerous. But what's happening in Canada, go back to your point, Wayne, I think we are starting to see this almost regionalization of our nations. And I know that Alex is got his own ideas about where we are in the world and why this is happening. And I would, if with your permission, Wayne, I would just like to say to Alex, maybe he would be able to respond to this, and then I'll hand back to you. What we're witnessing with this globalization, this almost the construction of this one world global government that is taking place, has a direct correlation to what we're seeing in the scriptures. And you can't read the scriptures, you can't read the books of Daniel or Isaiah or even Revelation without it jumping off the page at you. What we're witnessing is this one world government that's been prophesied to happen. Now, I don't know, Alex. Maybe you'd have a comment on that, and I'll hand back to you to maybe get your thoughts on that, if I might.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jim. Happy to comment on that. When you go to Revelation chapter 13, there's descriptions of things that 2,000 years ago, when John wrote them, almost certainly sounded totally ludicrous. I mean, you can imagine a guy on an island saying that someday there was going to be an international system that was going to be able to prevent every single person on the planet from buying or selling if they wouldn't take some mark. That must have sounded so kooky. What kind of global system would be able to prevent every bushman out in the rainforest from being able to buy or sell if they won't participate in some sort of system? Well, now we actually see the mechanics of all of that coming into view. And so with a lot of the prophecies that are in Scripture, they have multiple applications. Sometimes they have an immediate near-term fulfillment and then a much later fulfillment. So I won't claim to understand perfectly everything that's in there, but I think as we move into this kind of one world system, as the evildoers drop the mask, the parallels with what is outlined in the Scriptures is truly extraordinary. And I think that's really hard to miss. I think even before I became a Christian, even before I was a regular student of the Bible, those parallels were very, very obvious there. And that's something that I think people who don't take the Bible seriously need to wrestle with, need to come up with an alternative explanation. I mean, there are possible explanations, but it's very, very difficult to escape the fact that what is happening in the world today lines up very, very closely with some of the things that the Bible has said for thousands of years were eventually going to come to pass. And that's at once really good news and kind of scary news, right? The reason it's really good news is the grand finale, so to speak, is that, God wins, good triumphs over evil. And so praise the Lord, we know where all this is heading. But in the meantime, I think these parallels are really important. There's another element in Revelation. There's also hints about in some of the Old Testament prophecies about this idea of 10 kingdoms coming to take over the world, and then all the kingdoms uniting behind this global system. And again, I don't want to try to say, well, this is exactly how it's going to work out. But you look at how the world right now is being divided up into these regional systems. The European Union, of course, is the premier example. It's actually the template that they're using for the African Union, that Putin is using for the Eurasian Union, that they are using for the North American Union, that the South Americans are using for the Union of South American States. And we have seen the globalists talk very openly about this exact strategy. Going back to in the early 1960s, Lincoln Bloomfield wrote a report for the U.S. State Department where he actually said, the title of the report was "A World Effectively Controlled by the United Nations." And so the task that he had then was, how do we get there? And his answers were very clear. You can still read this publicly available report today. War, crises, and the threat of war are the way we get people to accept this idea. And secondly, he said the fastest way to do it is to divide the world up into regions, maybe starting with customs unions, and then eventually merging those all together. Zbigniew Brzezinski outlined that process. Henry Kissinger outlined that in 2014 in his book on world order. He said the contemporary quest for world order will be to divide the world up into regional orders and then relate those regional orders one to another. So, we know from the globalists themselves that this is what they're planning. We see in the Scripture kind of vague outlines of exactly this sort of strategy on the road to one world system. And so this is something I think that everybody needs to wrestle with at some level and needs to try to factor into their thinking.
I have to add one in there, Orwell. If you look at Orwell's map, it is almost exactly that. And, a little adage that I've been kind of adopting lately, and Matt, you'll appreciate this. 1776 is the cure to 1984.
If we look at the Club of Rome, they literally redrew the maps of the 10 kingdoms on the map of the Club of Rome. How they broke this down. And we read in Scripture, the great merchants of the world were these kingdoms. These are the Amazons, the Bezos, the Zuckerbergs. Kingdoms are no longer this sovereign land who we have kings and queens. These are people of industry, and that's what Scripture is showing us.
Yes.
So we're going to see this reallocation of the world's wealth. We've seen it through every major crisis, and the mom and pops don't really understand this redistribution of wealth. We saw it in 9/11 where we lost $1 trillion right from our nose, and then we're just so overwhelmed with what we saw in New York that we didn't even care to say, Hey, what did Rumsfeld say about losing $1 trillion the day before? This is what the lunacy that we're under here. And every change comes with a major crisis. And WEF promised us a cyber attack that would happen, cyber attack from Klaus Schwab. That was in 2020. They don't just say these things because they just are, well, I wonder if this would be cool to say. They do this with intent.
And they also predicted civil unrest to extremes, and this is we've got about 10 minutes left here, and I am 100% in alignment with you, Alex. My belief says that God wins. My understanding is that I don't necessarily get to see that in my lifetime. We watch the clock, the universe doesn't. And right now we're seeing, Bryce mentioned to me in the chat here, we're seeing this conflict, this war, civil war in Ireland. All of the European nations are on the edge of it. England's on the edge of it. Canada, surprisingly, it isn't Canadians that are on the edge of a civil war. It's the Khalistanis and the Palestinians in Canada. But this is, I think, that's. So to round the table here off, I'm going to ask you guys, to me, that's what my number one existential crisis is that I see coming, is this manufactured civil wars and unrest that keep us divided within our nations. And we need to get back to that. Localism is the cure to the globalism, and it's also the cure to the civil unrest. And so working towards that is my number one priority. You're one-on-one, Matt, and we'll finish off with Alex. We'll round off the table here, and hopefully we can squeeze that in 10 minutes.
Well, I just am honored to speak with you guys and be on this round table. And again, that if you're hearing this, share it. I mean, if it's just us talking in this room, I like talking to you guys, but we know this stuff already. We are the choir. We need to get out to the highways and the byways. We need to get into local churches. That when I was talking about just the died suddenly things and the things that I was finding with the embalmers, I was telling people that I know are vaccinated, but I needed to tell them it's going to be a hard conversation, and please don't get the second booster or the third. These are hard things for a lot of people to understand, that the reality of the world we live in is run by people who are anti-God, who believe that they are God, and they want to change us from the root of being what we are, image bearers of God. They want to change our DNA. They are starting to do that, and I don't want them to succeed. And I know we read the days get so bad that he shortens the days because it gets bad. So be it. I'm here to show them there is an ark. His name is Christ. You'll find salvation in him. And be bold and be powerful, and love your neighbor as you loved yourself, and we will survive, and we will unite, and we'll defeat this as much as we can.
The evil was trying to prove their superiority to God, and they cannot. They will fail, and the more fortitude and conviction we have in our beliefs, the faster we will be able to unite and make that happen. Amen to that, Matt. Richard, you're one-on-one. Big subjects, little time.
Okay. Tonight we've discussed a lot. It's been wonderful to be here tonight. By the way, thank you all very much indeed. We've discussed basically the mechanics of our control, and they need to be understood as such. These are the mechanics and the mechanisms that are used to control us, the central bank digital currencies, AI itself. And we are coming to a point in time right now where AI will become irresistible to every human being. So I don't know what your beliefs are, if you believe in a rapture or not. It doesn't matter. But what I will say is I did have a fixed point on the rapture. I believed it was at the end of time, etc. Now, after seeing what AI is going to be bringing forth to the table, I'm a pre-trib, because no man is going to be able to resist this thing. It's terrifying.
Convenience is the devil's candy, right?
Yeah.
Matthew, you're one-on-one. And before I forget, Matt, I'm in the neighborhood of Ottawa. You and I have to
let's get together.
Break bread.
Yes,
Amen.
yes, for sure.
So, Matthew,
to
you're
that.
one-on-one.
So we talked about some of these things, like the false flag nuke thing. These are all possible things they're going to hit us with, and that would, of course, escalate very quickly into fallout and total panic, stock market crash, everything else crash. I would like to underscore that the Polygon thing, Project Polygon with WEF, they had practiced that, and remember they actually got the big e-security companies together and they practiced that in 2022 in April. They announced a date they were going to do it, and then 3 weeks before, a month before, they said no, we've changed our mind. Well, the very date that they first said, the Rogers wireless went down all across Canada, which caused all the banking systems to stop doing e-transactions, and even some credit cards wouldn't work. So they've already practiced this once. And I think for me, this is the most likely thing. I mean, that it's once you do that, you can now have an excuse to bring down the banks and close them down for a number of days. And there's no transactions. You can't buy fuel, you can't buy food unless you do cash, and the stores take cash, which means long lineups for the few stores that accept it and for the few people who have cash. Creates absolute panic. And then they say, oh, it was the Russian hackers. That's what it was, or North Korean. They hacked into the bank. So the solution is we've got the digital IDs; they're ready to go. You've got to just sign up here, and we're going to give you, your CBDC from your bank, and now you can get some UBI if you don't have it yet. And we already know that it's been announced in October 2025, the end of the preparatory stage of the CBDC rollout in Europe has been completed, and then anytime after that. And the intel was that the euro dollar is falling in terms of currency crisis faster than the American one, so that the global BIS coordinated Great Reset is going to have to take place sooner than later. So that it seems to me you have all these things that can happen in terms of the false flag, Ebola, in which, by the way, from various corners, we're hearing that you can do this with EMF, with the metal that's in the air and the metal that's in people's bodies. You can actually invoke something that causes Ebola-like symptoms. So that would mass, terror. Project Polygon, and of course, crop failures from the sun dimming and that kind of thing. But that may be down the road. So all these things could happen. I think one of the things that came up in the last hour was Peter Checkmate the Matrix has come up with ways of chipping away at our local laws to try and erode these laws, which are going to try and roll out these digital IDs and such, and privacy laws, etc. So I think there's things we should be doing now to prepare, because we know they're going to do this one way or the other. In addition to prepping, and having water and food and all these things, we need to have a preparation to, challenge with the law. I'll pass along. Thank you.
I think those are great ways to find our ride or die community, that localism beats globalism community. But Bryce, your top two, I know that there was a whole bunch. You had like 5 and slides and everything. We're not going to get to that today, but your top 2 points.
Yeah, I'll kind of break it down as simply as I can, because there's so many things that we can focus on, and I do. Like my Twitter has the 8 existential crises of Agenda 2030. So the problems that we face are infinite. The people that we face are the most well-funded, well-organized people in all of human history. So the enemy that we've really chosen here is about the top tier that you can really get of Bond villains, right? But the solution to this is very simple, right? It's organization and mobilization, right? What does that mean? Skills, assets, resources, community, and protection. Not necessarily in that order, but those 5 things. The most important thing that anybody can take from all of these discussions is what and how am I going to do, and how am I going to organize with other people? The reason that they're pushing all of these insanely complex systems is because if they know, if we wake up and say enough is enough, that's it, we're done, and you're done. They are the only thing that they fear is our organization and mobilization to destroy them. That is why they push all of this insanity. And so the one thing that we need to do is exactly what they fear: organize and mobilize. What does that mean? Who's in your community? Who can you trust? What can you do? What can you build? What can you organize? And how are you going to fight this war? And I'll make this final point. This is a war for survival. This is a war for our futures, for our families. Everything that we care about is on the table and on the chopping block. So if we don't win this war in our generation in the next 5 to 10 years, we lose permanently.
Amen. That's true. Wow, that's big statements, Alex. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, echo everything that everybody on here has shared. I agree 100%. And, I love the discussions about the rapture and the premillennial, postmillennial, amillennial. I think all that's great. But I think as Christians, we should discuss those things. The Bible talks about those things. It's good for us to discuss those things. But we should never forget that God has also given us very clear instructions as to what we are to do. We are to resist evil. We see God's people all throughout, from Exodus to Revelation, resisting wickedness, and we have an obligation to reprove it, to resist it, to rebuke it, to expose it, and we should do that. They've got their Great Reset. We've got the Great Commission. Right? What a great news we have for the world, that you can be saved, you can repent, God can adopt you into his family. And so we go out and we fight evil with good. Our weapons are not of this world. They're not carnal, but rather mighty to pull down strongholds. And so that is really, really encouraging to know. We have an obligation to disciple our children. I personally, I homeschool my kids. We're part of Classical Conversations. I wouldn't trade it for the world. We need good access to information. Bible obviously is the number one source of the Freedom Train International. Folks ought to be tuning in here every time there's something going on. The New American Magazine is a great resource, but ultimately get in your Bibles, be in prayer, get active in your church, make friends with your neighbors and your community. And together we can do incredible things in these incredible times that we find ourselves in.
Amen.
Amen.
Just before I let Jim close this out here, Alex, I'm going to steal a personal moment here. I have been wanting to, for the longest time, to invite you for a discussion on the armor of God, because I think there's a very misunderstood part of what the sword actually means, and we don't know how to wield it. And I think we could all, as greater communities, use some sword training. So hopefully we can reach out and connect for something like that. I think it would be a great opportunity. So Jim, wow, what a day again. You never know what you're going to get on Freedom Train International, but you know it's going to be good.
Oh, for sure, for sure. The very first thing I want to say is a big shout out to one of our UK ambassadors, Victoria Rickson, who got some bad news today. She lost her baby. She had a miscarriage. She would have been on the show tonight otherwise. And there's a lot of prayers, a lot of love, a lot of support being sent to Victoria. We're with you. She's like family to us. She's one of us. And we always pay tribute to Victoria. She's a great, magnificent lady. The other thing I would say is how pleased I was, not just with the men in this room here tonight, but with the men and women who have been making up the show. It was a very, very powerful show. From my perspective, the numbers are kind of off the charts in all the mediums. I think this may have, apart from our original New Year 24-hour marathon, I think this might have been our biggest show to date. And of course, it's going to be repeatedly put out. One thing that's quite clear in all of this is that it's all interconnected, but it's very important that people understand that we are talking about dark subjects, but there is a pushback. We are the resistance. Freedom Train International is the fastest growing and largest freedom movement in the world today. We are lions and lionesses, and it's time that people understood the power that exists within them. You need to remember who and what you are. The Great Commission, the great destiny that awaits all of us. It won't be easy, but we need to rise now. We need to push back. We need to stand together internationally. And that's the primary mission of Freedom Train International, is to unite patriots all around the world. And I have to say, even though I was in the back room, I was listening avidly to the conversations that were taking place. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Once again, special shout out to Matt and Richard for being on the show for the full 4 hours. That's no easy task. It is appreciated. Thank you guys for that. I hope to see you back on again. Richard, please convey my greatest respects to Jeff Taylor and the Jeff Taylor podcast on YouTube. It's a great show. I recommend everybody watch these guys. Died suddenly. Give my kindest regards to Edward. I know he couldn't be here tonight. He was doing another live stream out there, Matt, but a great guy. Matthew Pauly, fantastic to see you, mate. And of course, Alex, and likewise, once again, I really appreciate your commentary, your wisdom, your knowledge and understanding of the whole 2030 agenda, what's been rolled out, and your faithful, powerful portrayal of how it relates to the scriptures. We can't ignore it any longer. The time has come to stand. Step up, step forward in faith. And, I would say it is written, we have not been given a spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind. That's what you call spiritual warfare. The enemy can't stand it. They flee. They run screaming when you say things like that. And I will just close by saying thank you to our marvelous, wonderful, fantastic audience out there for sharing this, for supporting us. If it's on your heart to donate to what we're doing, because we always need coal for the furnace to keep that engine going, Freedom Train International, you go to freedomtraininternal.org. If you want to donate, if it's on your heart to do so, we'd be very grateful for that. And once again, any businesses out there will happily link in with you if you're looking for sponsorship or support. But, you know, at the end of the day, this is for the people, and we appreciate your support, standing with us, helping to share, like, and get that message out. It's incredibly powerful and very, very important for the time that we're living in. What a time to be alive. So thank you to each and every one of you. Thank you to our ambassadors, to our marvelous guests. And until next time, remember, as the world gets darker, we get brighter. This is Jim Ferguson on behalf of Freedom Train International. We'll speak soon. Thank you and good night.
Left behind, no second chances, no compromise. The reckoning rolls with fire in its eyes. No more waiting, no more chains, no more silence. We've stoked the flames. To ride the freedom train. Stand, never again. Turning back, our freedom calls. The throttle's wide, the gears scream red. Run if you want, this train moves ahead. No more waiting, no more chains, no more silence. We've stoked the flames. There's a ride for freedom. Ignite, iron and fury, black smoke in the night. Globalist fear, the train draws near.